Oh hey, it's another Night Watcher level. I hope you didn't think those were gone, because they're not, and I'm kinda glad they're not gone. We've still got a few left, and they bring with them different aesthetics and different mechanics than the rest of the turtles. The design of this Night Watcher level is very similar to the previous one, so it's not like we're going to see anything too amazing or new here, but I appreciate the change in tone every now and again. The Night Watcher levels just bring a slightly bigger focus on combat and generally change the art direction to be more moody and dark. It's not like a complete shift in art style or anything, but there's a noticeably more bleak focus in the Night Watcher levels. I'm not sure if slightly was the best choice of words to describe the increase in combat though, because it sometimes feels like you can scarcely move 100 feet before running into combat again. The moodier atmosphere of the Night Watcher levels combined with the increased focus on combat and the increased difficulty of the combat, it really makes me think of beat-em-ups, not just older beat-em-ups like Streets of Rage, but PS2 beat-em-ups like Beatdown and such. It makes me feel a little bit comfortable. So even though these stages might be some of the worst because of the greater focus on combat compared to the others, and the slow pacing of the combat since you don't have the other turtles with you, I personally find the atmosphere appreciable because of my appreciation for beat-em-ups in general, even if I don't much like the combat in this game. But sometimes it's not always about the game mechanics, even though the game mechanics are important. Sometimes the mood helps a lot, and the mood here is good, for my personal taste. You know, I'm walking around the dark city streets, and then a gang of hoodlums shows up and I gotta beat him down. The actual beating down part wasn't so great, but if it was, then I would probably like these levels a lot more. I like this really broken down jungle gym right here, because the whole game's kind of a jungle gym when you think about the platforming. Climbing the jungle gym is also way faster than using Raph's size to climb up, so there's that too. It's really pleasant brown against red. It's a really pleasant shade they chose for that. So another problem I have with this game's environments, even though I think most of them look pretty, there's way too many Cowabunga Carl advertisements, Cowabunga Carl being the mascot that Mikey dresses up as. I get that it's supposed to be cute to see the Cowabunga Carl advertisements in costume all over the place, but the reason Mikey was working that job is because he had no money. If he had enough money to pay for this many billboards, then he wouldn't be working that job. Anyway, cool, it's time for my favorite section of the level, which is the toy shop. Toy shop has very pleasant, cozy red walls and carpet. It's a very odd, very extravagant layout for a toy shop, but it still looks like a toy shop. I really appreciate the design of this place. You know, it seems like the kind of weird toy shop you'd find in a city tucked away in a corner somewhere. It's really eccentric, but I like it. I also like that we have to climb a tiny Ferris wheel up to some toy planes. Do the tiny Ferris wheel or toy planes really add anything in terms of challenge or general game design? Not really, no. In fact, it requires you to wait. But I like the atmosphere of this toy shop so much that I can live with that. I think the best thing about the toy shop is that it's over. It's done now. You know, it doesn't overstay its welcome. You're in and you're out. But it leaves a strong impression. I think that's a note the rest of the game could take, really. And it would also help greatly if all of the game's combat sections were in really colorful, weird places. Let's call them weird places like that. There's a few other really colorful, really pretty arenas in the game. In fact, the next level is pretty much one big, really colorful, really pretty arena. Hey look, more giant billboards that Mikey couldn't afford. And I think that's probably the best way to stop the combat from getting dull, is to make the player fight in places that look visually appealing, visually interesting, distinct. Something I've noticed is that even if I'm playing a mediocre beat-em-up, as long as there's beautiful scenery to look at, it feels less repetitious than it would otherwise. Now, of course, the beautiful scenery shouldn't be all that carries a game. The game mechanics should be good too. But if the game mechanics and game design are subpar, then including a variety of beautiful scenery, that really helps go a long way toward keeping the game entertaining. I mean, there are a whole lot of ways to keep your game engaging, and you don't need beautiful scenery to do that. I'm just saying that beautiful scenery helps, especially if your game mechanics and game design aren't very good. Like, I wouldn't say Beatdown has great artistic direction or anything like that, but I was engaged enough to play it for over 20 hours to unlock the Godfather ending. That being said, it would still benefit from having beautiful scenery, it just wasn't necessary. TMNT, on the other hand, isn't engaging enough without its scenery to hold up an entire beat-em-up. TMNT absolutely needs more beautiful scenery to keep its lackluster beat-em-up mechanics interesting. Because when you fight most of the beat-em-up sections in areas like this, and your skills aren't being tested in any meaningful fashion, you're basically just doing the exact same thing over and over, can get a little tiring, start to feel some fatigue kick in. Now, a more interesting question would be, can the platforming in TMNT stand up without beautiful scenery? And I think the answer is yes. I think absolutely, if you replaced all of the environments in this game with wireframe, I would still probably love the platforming. I would still probably recommend the platforming exactly as highly. In spite of how much I rag on the combat, which is roughly half the game, I did tell you this is some of the most satisfying 3D platforming I've ever experienced, you know? It's really good. And this is entirely unrelated to the general game design and aesthetic talk that this video has had so far, but I really like the clicky, clacky, clanky noises that Nightwatcher's suit makes. I just find those really satisfying for some reason. They make the platforming more fun for me. You know, the first time I played this game, I told myself there's no way I'd ever record it, because there's no way I'd have enough to say, I just wouldn't. But here we are, halfway through the Let's Play, and I think the passion carries it, really. I rely on that a lot to carry me through games that most people wouldn't have much to say about, you know, being passionate. Because there's only so much you can say when you're giving a clinical analysis of something's game design and game mechanics. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Like, if you wanted to do that for TMNT, that's fine. You should do that. People should analyze things critically and in a level-headed fashion. But I also like the idea of being able to do both. I don't know if I do it successfully, but I really like the idea of being able to analyze games in a level-headed, critical fashion and talk about what makes them, well, what makes them special to me, really. Because a lot of games are special to me. You could say video games as a whole are special to me. Maybe that's why there's like 1,000 videos on this channel. Okay, so I need you to vote right now. I need you to vote with your phones for me. Right up ahead, here's a parking garage, and I think it's the only parking garage in the game where there's a fight section. And I need your opinion. I need to know, is this fight section in the parking garage, does this count as unique and beautiful scenery? Do you think this is enough variety to make the combat less boring, I mean?
Them lose my battle. Finally, I took them all out. Then I figured out what to do next.